I think that Senator McCain has a track record of proven leadership. He's been kind of a Washington outsider, and that's not me saying that. If you just go look at the voting records, you can look it up online in a simple Google search. You have a very centrist candidate. To be honest with you, McCain wasn't my first, second, third, or fourth choice because he's not, as conservative as some Republicans. So that being said, you have Obama on the other side that he's very liberal. Joe Biden, first and third most liberal voting record. So and if that's what you support, go and vote for that. But I think that McCain is a little bit more mainstream in terms of his policy positions, and he actually has experience.
I believe he should be running this country because I believe that his policies and his views on how the country should be run are the views of America, and that in the past, I believe that America is a mostly democratic nation, and that sometimes they just don't turn out to the polls, and that the majority of the country is ready to turn in a different direction, and I think that most of the American people will be better served by Barack Obama.
Well, we're tired of seeing them. I guess I'd like to say that McCain, I think, had a very, very difficult set of strategic choices in front of him. He was running with an unpopular president of his own party, and as you can see, he's tried to move as far away from the incumbent as possible. At the same time, he also had a base that he had to go to, and yet he can't win just with that base alone. Bush did just sort of squeak it out, but Bush also got close to 50% of independent voters as well. And so I think McCain not only had this very difficult strategic situation, but then was also hit with the financial collapse that has made his situation, I think, quite. I wouldn't want to be in it. I would say that. I think Obama came in. Basically, any Democrat was in an advantageous position this year just because of the structural conditions that existed, and the unpopular incumbent, the economy not doing too well, a lot of people concerned about the future. The big question is whether race really made any difference or not. We don't really know as yet, but my guess it's going to make a lot less difference than we think. Well, there will be a lot of people turning out in this election. There's a tremendous intensity about it. But obviously, the most obvious thing about it is the candidate, the Democratic candidate, being a person of color, Republican vice presidential candidate being a woman. So there's some. I hope novelty is not the right word, but there's some things here that are clearly different than the past. But there are also very serious issues that the country is facing, and very intense divisions between the parties.
Never been this easy for students to vote on campus, so there's going to be a very high turnout. Nationally, it's different because every election, they say, this is the most important election of our lives. But a lot of my professors and things have been saying, this truly is one of the more important elections because of some of its aspects. An African American president, a female vice president, but also just because it's a turning point in the direction of the country, I believe, and whoever we choose is going to be it's going to change the country.
I think that I don't know if it's as different as it seems. We talk about record numbers of voters and all that stuff, but if you actually look at the percentages, it seems that a lot of people that were previously registered to vote are updating their voter registrations and then casting their ballot. So in terms of the large surge of new registrations, yeah, there's been a lot, but I think you can premise it by saying that. In terms of the actual policy, I think is what it gets down to. I think each base was electrified by each candidate. Like I said, you had an African American on one side and a female on the other. I think we're at the point where we're down to policy, and that transcends gender and race, and that's what matters to the American public. And if you look at the policy positions of each candidate, I think one side over the other is a bit more polarizing, and it's kind of a referendum on that.
Well, I think it's because first there's an opportunity to turn out early, and second there have been a lot more people registered to vote this year, and they appear to be turning out in very large numbers. So a combination of the opportunity and a lot of mobilization.
I'd probably say a lot of it centers on the candidates. I think on each side with Obama and Palin especially, you have candidates that kind of have electrified their base.
In the past, a lot of college campuses have had problems with students trying to get to the polls, making sure they're registered correctly, and students just want to make sure that they're going to be able to vote, and they want to go to the centers early to make sure that if any problems happen, then they have the time to take whatever measures are necessary to make sure that their vote counts. So I think a lot of it just has to do with students wanting to make sure that they vote and that their vote counts.